take it.
Oh yeah, take that for sure. He's northeast US, right? So it's usually
exactly.
if you have good internet, it's not super terrible. I'll introduce the first player as we start off this best of 3. In the bottom right, we have that red Protoss player. He is Neeb.
A low ground wall off. All right. In the top left, as the blue Terran, he is Liquid's Clem. All right. Already 2 interesting things happening. 1, gas first from Clem, and 2, and perhaps even more interesting in my opinion, is that Neeb has gone for a low ground wall off versus Terran. This was Zerg, we're not talking about it, but versus Terran to start it off here is a bit unorthodox. We expect it maybe for the 2nd or 3rd pylon usually, but not right now. And well, Neeb might be sending the Zealot across the map. He now maybe has to bring it back to deal with the engineering bay.
Yeah, well, probes are immediately going to get pulled to deal with the eBay block. But yeah, this is quite interesting, right? Because when you do this sort of build, it gives you a really fast factory follow-up for when that barracks is done. And if I was going to say why Neeb would put the gateway on the low ground like in a normal game and wall off like this, it has to be some sort of concern for Hellions, because we've had a pretty large number of Terrans in, especially as far as the European Terrans go, right? I think Clem and Euthermal have both in their TVPs in the European bracket. They did this proxy starport build, right? Off of like a 1 base, very late command center. And a lot of Protoss players were taking some serious damage from the early Hellion harass, usually proxying the starport to build medevacs, but you don't know 100% if that's going to be the case this time. I'm going to assume that Clem probably wants to try to do a Hellion drop because this is going to delay his expansion a ton. And if you're going to do that, you should probably be doing it because you're focusing on dealing a lot of damage to make it worth it, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's not going to be a proxy starport, but yeah, you might be right about the just general Hellion drop. As far as the Protoss side of things, I was saying that like you should do it with the 2nd or 3rd pylon, and you get that wall off with the additional gateways, or as close to it as possible. And I thought Death Or was one of those maps that does have a short enough choke to do that. But you might be right just with the speed of Hellions, because factory expands have been coming out in this matchup, and Clem did one right here, right? That he might have just been thinking, like, I'm going to stop even those first 2 Hellions from coming into my main base. We'll never quite know if like, he was going to do something else, like try and use that to propel a Zealot Adept harassment starts. That it used to be kind of one of the classic openers a couple months ago, more than a couple months, I guess, at this point, because he had to deal with everything he saw. He had to scout, he had to deal with the engineering bay. But as it is, he will not be broken from the front with those Hellions unless the Reaper can do the little micro bot, but there's a Force Fleet even available now. And it'll only be down to that medevac. He's going to follow this up with a Robo. All right.
Okay. Yeah, it's not as easy to boop it when the Adept is there, because the damage to actually kill what you're trying to boop it with is very high. But to your other point as well, I do agree. Usually you don't want the cybernetics core to be exposed, right? If they do any sort of tank push or cyclone big attack that has any sort of staying power, you're usually going to lose that. One of the Adepts picked off. Hellions dying though. And these units they're not the sturdiest. Good force field to block from getting around, but I think there's still plenty of shield battery energy. And Clem, I guess he gets a very expensive scout, we could call this. Oh, the soft warp and the block it there too.
Yeah, I guess you're right. He's going to be an expensive scout. I was a little surprised that Neeb didn't force field it on the entry to the natural, but maybe he really didn't want to. Maybe he was flying on a hallucination. Well, he had to stop it getting to the main base. It already scouted a very fast Robo. So generally with that Robo first, which is the least likely of all the options, Stargate or Twilight Council first usually. But with a Robo, it is usually directly into those Colossus. And then we'll see Blink added on later down the line. Or even perhaps he might even skip Blink for a while yet and just hope that Clem isn't going to be, dropping a whole lot, which would be a weird thing to think about Clem, as Clem is aggressive, known for his multitasking, known for his drops. And in this game, he is going into Banshees, which, obviously there's observers available, but there's actually not going to be Blink or that many Stalkers to spread around all 3 bases for Neeb.
Yeah, there's a good amount of opportunity, right? And this matchup to me, honestly, just looked kind of exciting because Clem right? He kind of made that really big splash in that European bracket. So I'm like, he's got to be coming in here with some fire. He's got to be coming in here feeling good. If momentum is a thing, then he 100% has it. And Neeb obviously still had a really good result in his bracket, and I feel like he's going to be on a bit of a revenge tour for this tournament, trying to, kind of maybe reassert himself at least over the other NA players. But that's what makes this to me such an interesting matchup, because this obviously we don't really get to see these guys go up against each other as much since we spend so much time in that round robin stage before we go into the brackets, and then it's like, yes, you finally made it to the very end, and we get to see you all beat each other to death, and it usually turns into great matches.
Well, Neeb seems like he's somewhat prepared for this push. No, not as I was hoping for. That's one shield battery. He does deny the bunkers pretty quick, but they'll come back down again. So the Banshees in this situation usually looking to distract, and they did distract a total of 4 Stalkers, which are now being brought to the front lines. But then the Banshees can also be added to the front lines. They have some serious firepower. Actually, already trying to break it, Neeb decides to move in with the overcharged shield battery, but it's slightly out of range of what he really wanted to accomplish there. The Colossus can't actually tango with these Marines until it's out of range. So actually didn't stick around as much as it should have. It's sticking around. Nope, just kidding. That's a big loss. Wasn't anticipating the tank to fire it down.
Oh my God, Zombie Grub killed everything. He killed everything. And I mean, all that's left over is a single Marine and a Banshee. And I guess the rallying siege tank. But even if you don't knock down the Protoss base there, because Clem got that third command center and he's now going into double eBay, maybe I would have liked the eBays a bit earlier if he could have made it happen. Not a huge deal, but you completely reset all of those expensive units that the Protoss has, and it certainly hurts a lot more to have an army reset on the Protoss side of things than it does for the Terran.
Yeah, and especially when you took down everything, you don't risk really a counterattack. Not that the army Neeb had was really one prone to counterattacking anyways. I mean, as much charge odds being warped in, you're already pretty screwed, but Colossus not so much. Neeb I feel like a lot of that actually had to deal with not having either a second shield battery or just the first shield battery a little farther to the left of the Nexus. If it was actually there to cover the Colossus the entire time it was shooting, because it kept on walking away from it, I think it's a bit of a different fight. He has one more Colossus at least to work with, and maybe he's cleaned up a little bit faster as well. So kind of an unfortunate situation for Neeb. And then also losing 7 probes to the Banshees that are still alive. Very difficult to kill them without that blink. And the 4 Stalkers, I'm not even sure where they are right now.
Yeah. Jess, I read it as a little bit agreed too, right? Because it's not even that shield battery was for defending an attack, but based on its positioning, it looked like it could kind of be like, oh, it's for my probes at the third base. But when you're trying to have that shield battery fill multiple roles, and you're like, yeah, okay, well, it's never going to be far out enough to actually push off an army without leaving the safety of that. That's exactly why that Colossus died, because otherwise, as you said, the overcharge should keep it alive, but actually makes it a little easier to poke these probes on the west side of the Nexus, because it's not fully covering the mineral line either, because it is like a sort of half and half type of positioning, and that pressure that Clem's been able to put on with the Banshees has been really good. He's going to reassert himself over by the 4th base. Combat shield still isn't done, nor 1-1. So the army's going to be a little bit squishy, but until that point, I think with the siege tanks, you can still get a little bit of work done. Good pullback, keeping the Marines behind the Marauders. Really just wants to focus on this Nexus, and he will get it. Neeb was just not ready to try to defend that.
Yeah, if he was on the high ground attacking it while it ran up the ramp, it's a very different story, but he should have canceled it. Hindsight is 2020, though. Neeb's at a Warp Prism in the main with some Zealots that would be charge lots. Instantly denied, though. And now it's Clem in Neeb's main, causing a little bit of havoc. It will eventually be cleaned up. We're going to be grabbing a pylon, maybe 2. The tanks are going to be cleaned up by the Zealots in the low ground. Perhaps a decent split here from Neeb to take care of both. They're going to maybe lose his Colossus. Nope. He's going to be able to save that. He cleans up the tanks. At the end of the day, it's not a bad cleanup, but that loss of the Nexus is really painful.
Yeah, just the fact that Clem got that 3rd command center so early, right? He's already up to 69 workers, so he's feeling pretty nice. He's got his armory coming up, so he's going to be able to start that 2-2 immediately. But we talk about this all the time. When you're on that even economy for Terran against Protoss, it's so good. And even though that Immortal barely survives with 15 health, it can never be fixed. It is now 15 health Immortal for the rest of its life, Zombie Grub.
I want to point out that Neeb really did indeed skip out on Blink. I mean, he delayed it, and now he's straight up skipping it. He's just like not bothering to get it, despite charge having finished a while ago. And
he's waiting for the Black Friday sale on it.
Yeah, well, I mean, is that ever coming? It's going to be problematic as Clem's Viking count does grow. Now, he didn't immediately go into Vikings. He didn't see the Colossus and go like, oh my God, I need to throw on a second starport ASAP. He's still going off of a lot of just like bio with a concave and then EMPs. But the Viking count will grow. And when Clem pushes and Neeb still doesn't have Blink nor a decent amount of Stalkers, I'm going to be a little bit worried. Thankfully, he starts Blink. Now it's about maybe bulking up the count of the units that use Blink, and then we'll see how the engagement goes.
I don't disagree with you. I think that would be a marvelous decision because even down the line, I mean, you do expect that the Terran player, and we know that Clem is someone who will do this eventually, is you can get Liberators. Those units are pretty good. They're pretty terrifying. Archons do not counter them. They can go up to, what is it, like 10-ish range now, basically. Since the tweak to advanced ballistics, that's still quite the zoning tool. And usually lots of Stalkers is one of the ways that you answer it until they get too well upgraded and they're like 2-tapping all of them. But we're not really close to that situation either. So Clem's going to wedge himself below this 4th base, but Neeb was kind of waiting to be able to jump on top of this army, and a solid EMP is going to land on the Zealots. There's still a tremendous amount of Archons that are going to try to push through the bio, tanking up for these Colossi. But the Stalker count that we were talking about, Zombie Grub's not there. 4 Vikings just killed a Colossus and almost a second one.
Yeah, they almost took care of everything with that Archon saved that last one's life. It turns out that Neeb was taking a very good fight. He's got a lot of powerful units, expensive units left over, a couple Archons, his Immortals, even his Sentries living. He's going to finish 2-2 faster than his opponent. I don't think he's really in a position to counterattack because that would have been terrifying. But, oh no, the lack of Stalkers. He's going to lose him, his Colossus, and an Archon. Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah, well, I mean, he still has a really wild number of Immortals that have somehow been alive and building their count in this army, including the 15 health hero Immortal. So any opportunity where it's like kind of somewhat similar and you're trying to maybe dive or focus fire the Colossi with your Marauders, they're all going to get obliterated like roaches at this point. There's just so much anti-ground firepower in this army. The EMPs need to be on point. More importantly, now that defense needs to be on point, you got 10 charge lots being warped in your base.
That's a lot of charge lots. And the army is actually engaging over on the left side. I mean, there's a bunker, but that's about it. It's a bit of SimCity to work with when the army does move over here, so it should be A-okay. But the SCV damage has been taken in the main base. The Warp Prism living to continue its harassment in the natural, it looks like, or just simply escape. Wouldn't be a bad idea either. But Neeb, it looks like he really wants to continue pushing this, because he's also still pushing at the front.
Yeah, this is a nice little, it's like the Protoss is trying to multi-prong attack and harass the Terran player. This is what? Who decided that this was opposite day? And especially kind of risky to see that he's still being so forward, even though he's doing well. Like, we got blanket EMP'd on that whole army, but Neeb just says, yeah, I'm pretty sure I've got what I need. The Immortals are getting blasted away by the tanks, but he just killed the 3rd command center. He just canceled that 4th that was being built right there. It should be the 5th that was being built right there. The 4th position has already been taken, and there's even another command center building over there. But this is a big, it feels like a big momentum resetter for Clem, and for Neeb, it's given him time to actually situate his own 4th and take that 5th base. So if he can hold on against the next attack from Clem after dealing that much damage, I think he's going to be in a prime position to move forward into that end game. But this might be that time where Clem is going to start to spread out like an octopus, tentacles hitting every single base, and we'll see if Neeb can keep it together.
It was kind of a weird fight because not only the Warp Prism lived longer than I expected to. Oh, it's still alive. There you go. But it also was like Clem was at a solid supply the entire time, and army supply too. I thought he was eventually going to clear that up or just bring over the rest of his army and suddenly demolish Neeb, but it never actually happened. And once again, forced to deal with DTs. That's 2 scans. That's a bit of the army staying back at home. Clem does have an army lead, but as long as he's paying attention, Disruptor's not going to hit. This is a very powerful army from Neeb, indeed, but the EMPs can take out the Archons, and then they're not so powerful. And the Disruptors, well, they've already actually used their shots, so they're not powerful very much either. This is a prime time for Clem to try and move in and do some damage.
2 more Disruptors are going to show up to reinforce right now, but the siege tanks on the high ground, Zombie Grub, this position is prime real estate for the Terran player. Being able to use that to try to zone away these power units, focuses down to 2 Disruptors that are at the front. The 3rd one shoots, but the units that it was going to hit were either already dead or loaded into the medevac, and this pressure just looks really good. Overcharged on the shield battery. He took the shields off of the shield battery, couldn't quite finish it. I think if you feel that, you're feeling a little bit better, but At the same time, like, he also just did so much damage to the army right there. You just need to be careful against the disruptors. He's going to catch another one, freshly rallied out the oven and into the loving arms of Clem's army as he blows that one to pieces. And this is still not that bad. You know, I was thinking about this economic situation, but it feels like Clem has just been building command centers this whole entire game.
Yeah, he very quickly replaced his 4th base with, I guess, a 6th that was being made, or the other 5th, whatever you want to call it, because the 5th was canceled, as we saw it. Disruptor's going to be lost, maybe a 2nd one as well. Colossus very, very low, but nothing to really shoot at it. Clem has also been down in upgrades this entire time. With the hit to his economy, I guess he decided what he could afford, and it's been Ghost, Bio, and now a couple of Vikings, but never starting at 3-3. So Neeb was already ahead. Now he's been on 3-3 this entire time. Clem, he's not out of the game. He's going to continue macroing, getting his bases up, and try and play out and get a good engagement. But especially since his plan right there was kind of just like, I'm going to just roll you over with Bio, those lacking upgrades are really bad.
Yeah, the upgrades when it comes to playing Dio versus Protoss are pretty massive, especially with the number of Zealots that have been employed here too, right? All the extra damage that they're able to hold off. And that does kind of create this false power spike that technically will happen when Clem eventually evens up those upgrades. But by that point, there's going to be, you know, a myriad of disruptors. We've got Blink for the Dark Templars about to finish up. Shield upgrades are going to be getting added, so he's going to be going against the full arsenal of the Daylom over here if he cannot keep it going. But there's the DT counter harass. You think this is annoying now? Wait till that guy can just blink out of your scan when the next one comes.
Yep, Blink's almost done. Neeb even still continuing his upgrades. Clem has taken some good fights. Neeb getting a little over-eager. Now really with a ton of units that are benefiting from the upgrades where he's getting EMP'd, which is the other thing. Oh, good last-second pickup. That would have been a nasty loss there. And then, yeah, the Disruptors are also not actually getting the shots. So the Disruptors obviously don't care about upgrades. There's 4 of them. He's going in for a concave. We'll see how this works out. Neeb, I think he's going to take an excellent fight here. If Clem actually stays to defend, he's got to skedaddle. It's exactly what he's trying to do now, picking up, leaving, and then recuperating back at home.
It's so hard, though, right? It's so hard to attack. This is a very brawler type of army out of Neeb. A tremendous amount of Zealots, as well as multiple Archons to make sure that you don't feel like just standing and fighting. And then with 4 Disruptors and a Colossus backing all of it up, well, that's a nice chunk play. It's just so difficult to actually get to the core of what makes this army worth killing. And he hasn't been able to get there. The Vikings are going to chase down one of the Colossi. One of the stories, I guess, for this match already has been, you know, we don't like Stalkers very much over here in the Neeb camp versus Terran.
Yeah, he's finally up to 9. I think he just reinforced with some, but yeah, he's been on 4 for a shockingly long time. But now mixing them in, he's got 1 Colossus, but it's really been about like the Immortals, the Disruptors, other things from the Robo, and only reproducing the Colossus when he knows the Vikings have been taken down. Another engagement with the tanks, not really sieged up, getting obliterated instantly. A good concave for Clem to try and negate these Disruptor shots, but the rest of Neeb's army with those upgrades really helping out here, or maybe just not enough. The charge slots come in at the last second, and that will be enough to send Clem packing back home. A last medevac goes down. He is down now 30, 40 supply almost, with his +3 finally finishing. But can he make the stand right now? Neeb is looking for blood. He's not even going to let it happen.
Both of these guys, yeah.
Oh.
These were our 2 of our finalists, right, from their respective regions, and it was just that was just a really good day of matches. We got to see all these guys kind of pushed to their complete limits, and then it's funny that's like, all right, now that's done. But guys, the next tournament starts immediately after. Okay, so get your game faces back on. It's time to go again. And hearing what some of the players were saying about that, I know Rainer was felt like he had a fire lit under him for the season finals. And this event right now, like, it's always, the build up for this is always like too good. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. It's actually kind of like almost an issue when this type of schedule was actually first used. So obviously this is different entirely because it's COVID times, we're all online, blah, blah, blah. But there was a WCS system back in the day, gosh, I don't know, 2014, 2013, something like that, where you would win all your respective like regions, and then you would have the season finals right after. That did happen in the past. And I think it was an excellent addition for the times at hand. But actually back then, it was kind of one of those things where like MVP just won GSL. That makes him the best player in the world for 4 days. Like, let's go to the season finals now.
And now he has to defend that title immediately again.
Exactly, yeah. But As for this, it's really the only time we get to see that cross-region play. We get to see Neeb tackle Clem, where I think that's actually where Neeb would mostly be thinking of, as that's what, a lot of these guys are used to, playing in all the dream hacks of the past and combining the non-Korean section, but then also the Koreans as well, which will make an excellent lower and upper, I'm going to say bracket, but I meant, GSL groups, best of 3 later down the line. And that's what these guys are going to have to be worrying about. Neeb, he had to face Armani, which might have been a surprise for him if he were to win here. And for Clem to then have to go for a TBT, I mean, that's surprising because I didn't think Mar was going to lose, but it was like, okay, that's possible. That's fine. But I really didn't think Clem was going to lose this one. And he's already down 0-1, trying to go for a cheeky little Hellion drop.
Yeah, and that is exactly the point that I was trying to get to, because it is such a great feeling to win, and then immediately it's like, okay, well, first match going into this next tournament. All right, he's down 0-1 against a player from the region that we all spend most of our time making fun of, and suddenly things aren't looking super perfect in there, and Neeb's out with a vengeance, right? But here's that medevac drop we were talking about from that starport position, and one probe looks like it's grabbed immediately. Once the Phoenix can lift up the second Hellion, that helps tremendously, because it's it's usually that 3 shot to kill them, so it will take extra volleys to try to kill these probes. With the shield battery there, that does complicate things. Obviously, when you can attack multiple probes at once, the shield battery has to spend more of its energy. But at the end of the day, it looks like this build is going to be limited to about 3 probe kills for a medevac, and possibly, I guess these 2 Hellions might make it back, but not quite what you're hoping for out of this, I don't think.
No, not at all. Only 3 probes. It's really not great. I really liked how Neeb did that. So first of all, I liked that Neeb opened the way that he did. Okay, so once again, first of all, 2 shield batteries. Being denied on the Phoenixes. Okay. So 2 shield batteries. He's playing cautious. He knew it was a factory expand, and he knew the possibility of the proxy as well. So I liked that. Did the last game. And then here also going for the Stargate, I think was a great choice. And on top of that, I think there was some decent micro there where he did lift up that second Hellion. But then, you might be like, oh, he made a mistake because he can't shoot down the Hellions at that point. I actually think forcing it to stop, and then be, the 2 Hellions get into the main base first. They take their shots. They don't one-shot. And then the 3rd Hellion arrives. I actually thought was a great thing to do. As opposed to just being like, I'll kill this 1 Hellion and still give you the one-shot potential of the 3 Hellions in my main. Just tiny little things added up, and now he controls the game with these Phoenix for a little while. But Clem is maybe going to go for a push here. No SCVs being brought. I thought maybe like at least 2. Yeah, he's going to go for it.
Okay, well, I mean, hey, Phoenix can come back and kill as many SCVs as they want, but you're going to have to deal with this big attack, and if too much of the resources get invested into the Phoenix, that is what can open this up for that sort of 1-2 punch type thing. Hellions check over here. They're like, oh, probe is just chilling. The 3rd Nexus didn't actually start yet. And we've got the Immortal coming out. Immortal is going to be very important for helping to hold this off. But I think the biggest thing is, how do you approach where the tank is going to be? If enough of the Marines get shaved away, then it won't be too hard to deal with it. Neeb's just going to jump on it immediately, focuses down the Phoenix that's lifting the tank. Then the Immortal is already close enough to pretty easily mop that up, and Neeb with the pretty clean so far looking defense. Didn't lose the most expensive important units, just a couple of the adepts. And I mean, if the game plan was to hover around the Phoenix, I'd be surprised, but I mean, he is actually building more Phoenix, so maybe it is.
Yeah, I think he'd be a little bit sad about losing all of his Phoenix there, especially because that one might have been saved. The Immortal now even getting quite low is a bit scary. Clem kind of maximizing his damage here. Could have been a situation where he had no Cyclones left and these Marines are just already way out of town. But Neeb is even chasing this down. Wow.
This is how you get ganked, man. You got to go home at some point, right?
You'd think so. I'm really surprised that Neeb pushed this all the way out, but I think he really just was like, I deserve those Cyclones. I'm going to get those Cyclones, and to be damned about their micro potential. It was a little questionable because if 2 more lock-ons do happen, suddenly that could have been 2 more units dead, and if it's the Zealots, that's still a pretty good grab for the Cyclones. As is, killed one of the Cyclones, averted the pounce potential of the rest of Clem's army, which by the way now has Stim and is working on +1, and Neeb goes back home to get his Colossus involved in the fight. And the 3rd Nexus is almost done. It doesn't have a shield battery next to it, and Clem still has a shot here. Got a couple of force fields, not too many. Ooh, very weak medevac.
He's trying to make these pushes happen, and Neeb has played a very solid defensive game so far, but this is still Clem. He's still got a lot of units. The fact that each wave just gets progressively bigger like this while most of the original one dies is equally impressive to me, because it's sometimes difficult to get your army supply to snowball at all, but he's been increasing his production and expanding and moving around and getting everything else set up while he's been doing all of these attacks so that his army does not lose steam as he continues to make these pushes. He's even being incredibly patient with the stim on these Marauders. But now Neeb says, okay, I'm going to come out and I'm going to deal with this. Both Colossi are here. There's the Big Daddy Immortal. The Phoenix is there to annoy and harass these medevacs too. And again, it looks like Neeb is going to be able to just kind of shove Clem back. It's not a decisive fight victory by any means. Maybe if he was able to force field everything here, but no. And he's also going to chase really far again. Really, really far.
Yeah, it's always so scary when he does it, but I mean, he's right to do it. I think if we took away the vision and we were like, play this out from Neeb's position, most of us are just like turtling back at home being like, oh my God, what's Aaron doing there?
Especially for Protoss, right? Until you have like a ton of money and like 7 or 8 warp gates to be able to slam down that reinforcement somewhere to defend. When you cross the halfway point of the map and you don't have observers everywhere as tossed, the map gets very claustrophobic very quickly.
Indeed, yeah. Again, some excellent micro there from Neeb, using the Phoenix just to lift the tank, allow his army to get closer, and then it gets bopped, and then he even saved the Phoenix for a second there. I think it actually might be patrolling now. I mean, that Phoenix scouts a drop later down the line. That's pretty worth keeping it alive. Neeb's going to finish up his upgrades, so it is going to be even upgrades in just about 20 seconds here, finishing up all of his gateways. So we're going to have that really powerful charge lot warp in again, delaying the blink. But this game, it was not as risky of a decision to delay that blink, right? Last game, it was just the robo. This game, we had Phoenixes that, admittedly they did die. They also did what they had to.
Yeah, and that's all that matters, right? Get the job done, do what you got to do. That'll be enough for you at the end of the day. Having the Phoenix there, and he does still have like an observer that's not too far away from where that was either. So he's just kind of he's making the list and checking it twice, so to speak, with this type of defensive play, and I like it because he's opening the door now for that warp prism to potentially get some big damage. And 3 zealots are going to warp in advance, but I'm not really sure that there's anything waiting for it in the main base. If Clem starts to step across, especially the middle of the field, I think that's the best opportunity to wait for it. Don't let the army be here. Wait for the army to be getting ready to attack you. Then you hit that backstab, and the Terran is kind of forced to stim their army 2 or 3 times, sprinting home to defend, or they just walk into your Protoss wall, and if you have enough to kill them, you get to win the game. But obviously, there's also the possibility that Clem's army could just break Neeb, which, I mean, it could. That's a huge army. Despite everything that's happened in this game, he's still ahead like 30 army supply because his production's been insane, even though his attacks haven't been able to really hit their mark, so to speak.
It's at a cost, though. Again, he's going to be later to the upgrades, but maybe even more so in this game than last. He's only just now slapping on the armory in the engineering bay, which is going to be potentially canceled. As the Warp Prism hits the main, the Zealots were also going to hit the third, but Clem took care of that. Now has to send something to the main base while also accounting for the fact that Neeb is moving out with his main army. Clem is going to try and receive it, but his tanks are not siege. EMPs do finally go down. There's not too many Archons, and with the Concave here, Clem might have a decent chance to actually demolish this army. Should Neeb be taking this fight? I don't think so. This was a miscalculation, and that might be game in Clem's favor.
Yeah, I think a miscalculation might be an understatement of the century. This calculator doesn't appear to have had any batteries in it from the beginning, Zombie Grub. Clem's got 100 supply lead now. He's marching down the door, and are there even enough disruptors to blanket this army in Novas if he somehow got the miracle hits? I don't think so. GG's called, and Clem ties. And his opponent claiming that victory at last in game number 2. In the bottom right, the blue Terran, he is Clem. I froze like a deer in the headlights, Zombie Grub. They pulled the cameras up, and then I see myself, and I'm like, I look like such a slob. I can't believe I'm wearing this, This is the kind of thing that's like, oh, I just grabbed this right out the closet on my way over to the desk, and the effort there to find the most obnoxious shirt, I was not able to put that time in today, and that's a big disappointment by my standards. So I'll try to step that up if we get an hour break between the match at some point somehow today. I promise I will go turn myself into a clown as quickly as I can.
See, I predicted when we were talking about why you might, not be here. I said that I think you're going to wake up, immediately get on, and then you're going to have no shirt. Okay, so we go from...
Yeah, that was close to happening.
Okay.
I don't wear tank tops because I don't have dress shirts. I do it because it gives chat something to complain about other than balance, so that we can have a more civil discussion. But in that moment when I'm like, oh yes, my 7 a.m. alarm's going off. I have to go join the Hangouts now in like 15 minutes, and then my phone's like, no, actually, Nathan, the season finals start an hour earlier, and I'm like, okay, I'm the biggest douchebag in the entire crew because I'm the one person that somehow couldn't adjust for this. So yeah. I've got my coffee on the way though. I'm warming up, and I think you're doing a great job. How was that first match? Quickly, if you want to tell me how it went.
Oh, it's actually great. So we had we had one game where roaches did some decent damage to Maru on this map, I believe.
I'm gonna be sick. And then keep going.
And then a macro game from that Armani won. Then the second game, Maru was like, no, I'm gonna make banshees, and Armani made roaches again, and it was like, oops, my bad, and he died. And then the third game, we had another attempt at roaches, but this time Armani scouted, and Armani didn't go for roaches, instead for a fast spire, and won through the macro game. So there you go. There's the sum.
Okay. So it was like oops, all roaches, and then it went into I can't believe it's not roaches. All right.
Awesome. Yes, exactly.
Awesome. Wow, that's crazy though. All right.
Yeah, a bit of an upset.
Yeah, definitely.
We have something super interesting happening, which is kind of it is the theoretical ideal, as far as I understand, for this build, which is that you forced the Protoss player to take a very hard to defend third base. It's not impossible to defend, but it's a bit harder to defend with the engineering bay block. He didn't want to pull the probes again. He just took the other third base. Perhaps he thought that the probe pool was, I don't know, detrimental to his economy, or perhaps he thought the Romanicide had a safer third base, so he didn't mind it as much. But either way, now the Hellions get to go into the natural, into the main base, and there is a shield battery. That is 4 Hellions. They are one-shotting at 3 Hellions. They are still one-shotting, but the nice focus fire there from the Adept takes down the 1 Hellion. You can see it in Clem's face. He really thought he could get a one-shot potential at least once or twice, and it has been denied.
And Protoss players are getting really, really good at dealing with this build. Protoss have adjusted very well. It's one of those things that's eventually going to, I think, have to get kind of moved into the not every single game category as far as build orders go, because the way that these guys have been dealing with it seems a whole lot easier than a month ago when we were watching GSL games just end after the first 5 minutes when those Hellions come in and instigate everything. But Neeb he's actually had a really good grip on defending against that, which is pretty impressive considering that, the top talent in America that you're competing against usually and going up against. We know that Neeb plays a lot on Europe, of course, but just saying, like, tournament wise, the experience isn't as much against playing against top Terrans like this. So that's a pretty impressive hold to me. He hasn't really taken much damage at all in these early games.
It can kind of be a funny thing about people rising up from NA. And especially Neeb, I think, who's always been kind of jokingly, but actually somewhat seriously called like a European Protoss just because of his playstyle. Is that, you come up from NA, sometimes you go back to NA, it's actually more uncomfortable. So for Neeb, playing in North American region, playing a bit of that funny PvP on Sunday, that actually might not be his comfort level, right? Even though he's tried to mix in his own cannon rushes and mix in his own unique play. You go back to Europe where he spends, I would say, probably even most of his time, considering his ladder ranking there, and that actually might be him just at his best. And we're certainly seeing it. Last game, it was one brutal bad decision. Absolutely brutal indeed. But for the rest of that game, and for this game, he's been playing really well.
Yeah, no, it's been a good series out of him. Maybe that has a lot more to do with it than I maybe was even originally hinting at. But I think one of the best things, especially about playing on Europe, is Europe's the only region for StarCraft that just has one server. So you have the same ping every game that you play, which makes it a lot easier to develop your muscle memory and kind of get that fine micro down. But it's also interesting to consider that if you're an American who only plays on Europe, then you do lose that when you go back to playing on America, even though you have a quote unquote ping advantage, you know, all your muscle memory kind of has to be readjusted, which is the same reason why a lot of players don't like to practice on NA, because your ping can be one of 6 different options every single game you play.
Yeah, that's kind of a... I've never heard it quantified, but you're right. Like that's...
No, I mean, that's the reality of it. It makes it worse to practice on NA, for sure, just because of that.
Well, the move out is actually kind of stopped before it really began. Clem not going to push up the ramp, that central ramp that Manaside has. But it's not over, and Neeb's going to be able to see that. You know, we saw the unsiege, but then more reinforcements. Clearly, Clem's going to try and make something happen. Neeb gets time to finish up his shield battery, which can be overcharged. He's going to build a second one as well. He's also got kind of a third one, honestly, around at that third base, if he, depending on how this engagement goes, which direction it really heads into. But Clem is sieged up Neeb's entrance to his bases. And now it's going to be tough to decide where to defend. You defend left, they go right, and then vice versa the other way around.
Yeah, it's a good pinch move, right? Gets onto the shield battery over there. So the army's going to dive onto the force that's holding the low ground. This is a pretty wild amount of Marines spread out, though. But since the Phoenix are able to lift the tanks, I did not think they would be able to hold the tanks up over the Marines like that. But you know, with this amount of time to be able to do that, it certainly helps. 2 of them are still alive, though. And as the Stalkers die, the tanks are really only going to be able to shoot at those Colossi. So Neeb's kind of desperate to finish these off before the Colossi get picked. And with that one tank still alive, the Marines are able to come forward and get one. This is exactly what I was talking about, Zombie Grub. You need to dislodge this as soon as possible. More Zealots come out. But this is one of those situations, again, where we say, okay, yes, you're somewhat holding this, but the reset on a Protoss army is so expensive compared to what it's going to cost for Clem to rebuild his army. And, you know, we talked about that last game, and Clem just had a massive army supply lead despite them both getting reset because, you know, Marines and Marauders build faster than Colossi do.
It's not expensive to rebuild Clem's army, sure, but it's going to take a while yet anyways, because he's not on 5 barracks. He doesn't have the additions, that's right. So it's a 2-base all.
He gets the barracks up so fast. That's what I'm saying. He's actually, his production is pretty wild. And,
yeah,
and even if he gets a 3rd CC like he did last game, he still had a stupid amount of units after the first fight.
Yeah, he doesn't have 1 with an add-on, but he is up to 5, and he is trying to just like gain momentum, right? He's 2-base all in. He has a decent amount of production, but it's going to take a while to get over across the map. Not the biggest map, but, you know, 35 seconds. And then
I like the turret and bunkers.
That is pretty clever. And then he's even adding on a couple of Vikings that have against the Colossus army, hoping to find them very undefended. A couple Stalkers have been warped in, but still no charge. If there's charge, it'd be such an easier fight to take, but the Zealots still managing to get on top of the bio even a little bit, making room for the Colossus to cancel all of those structures. And once again, Clem is pushed back to the bottom of the ramp where he should not really do that well. His army's not bad against what Neeb has, but Neeb actually has 1-1 finished before that fight, and he is going to be the winner here. Neeb with the 2-1 defends Clem's 2-base all in. I think it starts